Hey guys, I just wanted to give you a disclaimer that this video contains very graphic and disturbing content. So if any of these things are triggers for you, please take care and I will see you in the next video. A forensic mental health care center. What is it? Why do they exist? What goes on in them? Forensic mental health care centers. These are asylums that we all look up and we're all watching on YouTube, and London Insane Asylum, Rockwood Insane Asylum for the criminally insane. There are so many out there. There's Sudbury, you name it. They're all over. We know that. And we all kind of wonder, seriously, what went down there? What treatments took place? There was so much that happened, all of this torture and all this abuse, just kind of So just sharing. I took a drive one night because I wanted to do a paranormal investigation at the St. Thomas Asylum. When I drove up, there was this newly built hospital. I remember looking out the passenger window and there was a nurse there that was on her break, obviously, and she's having a cigarette. And I asked her, are those buildings that I see in the distance, are those the buildings that make up St. Thomas? Just don't even try it. Security will be on you in 2 minutes and then they're gonna call the police. And I was like, shit. So I was like, okay, well, thank you for your time. And then she out of random, she's like, oh, I used to work there. And that hospital was better than this hospital. And then she adds, my mom worked there too, and that hospital was great. I have already done my research. I have already looked into this place, and the shit that went down is the reason I'm here to investigate. You guys are probably wondering why I'm so invested in this topic. Well, to be quite honest, it rocks me to my core, because as an epileptic, I would be one of those patients. I would be in there, dubbed as the, incurable, and it's, to me, it's just interesting as to why all of this torture and abuse went on for so long, and no one stopped it. So, anyway, I also have a relative that was thrown into Kingston Asylum. He had an STD that was untreated, and it made him seem like he was crazy and insane. And when you have a run-in with the law and you have mental health issues, this is when you end up going to one of these forensic mental health care centers. What was the actual treatment like? Do we know? On February 21st of 1933, the criminally insane building in Penetanguishene, Ontario was officially open. In February of '67, patients started receiving LSD. Get your popcorn, get some chips, get comfy, because this one is a twisted one. It's a trip. It's literally a trip. Let's start at the beginning. It all started with Oak Ridge. So St. Thomas ties into Oak Ridge, and we'll get there. Just hang on to your panties, okay? This was actually the maximum security forensic building and, healthcare center, sorry. The cell blocks at Oak Ridge housed men that committed various types of crimes. Between 1977 and 1983, men that were found guilty of their criminal offenses, they were considered not criminally responsible. So what we call as a defense of not guilty by reason of insanity. They were promoted to serving as teachers and or therapists at St. Thomas in the women's ward. Basically, the people that were there were serious offenders, and then you had people that were not. People that were brought in literally on someone's doctor's orders into a criminally insane building, mental asylum. Like, it's a prison/hospital for the criminally insane. Some people were in there for good reason, and others not so much. Enter Dr. Barker and his fucked up experiments on the inmates/patients. So in the mid-1960s, Dr. Elliot Barker came up with what he thought was the cutting-edge treatment to cure psychopaths. Dr. Barker had it in his head that he could cure psychopaths with LSD and or truth serum, aka dragon's breath. These were only a couple of the drugs, among many that were given to patients. Dr. Barker seriously thought that these drugs would cure them. He literally, in his mind, in his sick, twisted mind, he honestly thought that he was going to cure these patients by taking them on a trip.
More idealistic than I am now, in the sense that I thought what we were doing in the earliest years really was going to fix psychopaths, fix patients, that we were going to just develop the best program in the world and these patients were going to get better.
When Dr. Barker got to Oak Ridge, he invested his time in the social therapy unit. What is the social therapy unit? It was a program made up of group psychotherapy sessions, committees, and council meetings. The psychotherapy sessions began to become compulsory. So much so that, hey, Mark doesn't want to come? No? Oh, okay, so tie him up. Just tie up his legs and tie up his arms and just bring him in and put him right over by Sally. Right? Yeah, done. Seriously, compulsory like that type of compulsory. If there was a patient that was deemed to be at risk, or even said I'm having suicidal thoughts, that patient would be strapped arm to arm with another patient, and the patient that was not suicidal was the patient. He literally had to take care of the suicidal patient. No. Between 1963 and 1977, half of the patients on E, F, G, and H ward participated in a therapeutic community model where patients decided on treatments for other patients. So many levels of wrong.
We think the patients have really very great advantages as therapists for each other.
Dr. Barker, good old Dr. Psycho here, he honestly thought in the beginning that his patients, everybody wanted to participate in basically anything that he said. So what I'm not understanding is, if he thought everybody wanted to participate, Why the fuck did he take measures to ensure that everybody participated? And what was put into place to make sure everyone participated was called the Total Encounter Capsule. The Total Encounter Capsule is pretty much a torture. It's a torture chamber. It's. I don't know how else to break it down for you other than it's a mechanism used to torture human beings. And I don't see how in the medical field, how the government and the medical staff will let this fucking happen. The Total Encounter Capsule was an 8 by 10 foot room. A windowless room, chamber, cell. You had to sit in this 8 by 10 room that it was all tile, and you're in there and you're butt naked like the day you were born. Not a stitch of clothing on you. Everything's been taken from you. You're stripped of all of your dignity. You're stripped of anything you possibly had left. And I think it was to break them. For some strange reason, Dr. Barker thought this was some kind of therapy, and he was going to fix these people and just get the cycle right out of them. This was going to do it. We're going to put them in a room, in an 8 by 10 room, a bunch of them together for an undetermined period of time, and it's all tile, guys, and they're going to take that heat. And yeah, they're going to take that thermostat and turn it all the way down. So these guys are freezing with their asses butt naked, standing in there with the lights on continuously so that these guys don't even know what time of day it is. It's not even the worst of it. There's like an open toilet there. So you get it. And then their food is given to them through this hole. Their food is liquid coming down the hole through a straw. And that's how they had to eat. That's Dr. Barker. This was his baby. This was his idea to make sure everyone followed his rules, did what he said, did what he wanted. In this room, there was literally a one-way mirror so that all of these people that were being tortured inside and abused, they were being watched and they were being recorded. Everything that was happening to them was being recorded and documented. They were just guinea pigs. They were these human throwaway guinea pigs that, well, society didn't want them anymore. They're crazy. Nobody wants crazies on the street. Lock them up. And so they're on LSD inside a mental health facility. And who wouldn't be acting like freaking crazy? I'm sure I would. Inside this facility, there was a 16-year-old. And he was in there because he left home because of the abuse that he was suffering at home at the hands of his family. And the police thought, no, he's just a troublemaker. So he ended up being thrown into Oak Ridge. This hell on earth that is something out of a Stephen King novel. This baby was thrown into Oak Ridge and just try to survive, kid. That was it. There was another guy that he's driving around in a stolen car and the cops are on his ass and he's like, oh shit, okay, so I've got LSD on me. So he's one gonna get charged with the theft of the car, two with, I don't know what, possession intent to sell. I don't know what the hell the charges were back then. But he's driving along and he's thinking, okay, well, one charge is better than two, so downs it. Oh, fuck. What happens? He gets arrested and he gets taken to the police station. This man, this boy, he ends up high. Police think that he's off his rocker, and he ends up at Oak Ridge because he was tripping on the very thing that he was going to be treated with when he got to Oak Ridge. Does this make any sense to anybody, or am I the only one that's confused right now? There's a program, it's called the MAP program, that was used at Oak Ridge. And it's for motivation, attitude, and participation. And it's referred to by the patients as torture. Yeah. It was really nothing other than punishment. That's what MAP was. What they would do was they would strap your legs, and they'd have them like extended out in front of you, so you're sitting with your legs straight out but strapped together, and it would be like for hours. And you couldn't move, you couldn't do anything until your teachers told you that, or your psychiatrist said, okay, time's up. However, sometimes if you were really acting up, so instead of being strapped, then you would have to then sit on your knees for like periods of up to 8 hours. It's just, again, torture. So eventually we have Gary Meyer enter the picture.
Well, there's no doubt that there's a certain undeclared coerciveness to this place.
Gary. What can we say about Gary? Well, Gary was more of a psychedelic loving, kind of out of the box, gone to medical school, yet didn't ever study psychology or forensic medicine, and so he was more of a, let's chant, let's meditate, and let me stare into your eyes so that I can see into your soul kind of guy. And he was a psychiatrist at Oak Ridge. Yeah. Meyer was there. He would put about half of the ward on LSD, besides his chanting and his dream analysis and stuff. He would actually administer LSD. He was usually giving it to half of the patients, so they would all get, a dose. And then one day, he decides, fuck it! Let's give it to the whole ward! At this point, the guards are, I think it's getting kind of risky and dangerous now. Like, I think we gotta do something. And really, just now? Like, just now? Okay. And then so when Meyer came to work the next day, this is actually kind of funny. When Meyer came to work the next day and he put his key into the lock and was trying to, get his key to work so he could get to work, it didn't work. They had changed the locks. They didn't agree with anything he was doing anymore. Guards, inmates, they were all inside while he was trying to get in, and they're all like, bitch, bye. Okay, calm down. I know you're thinking, Sandy, what does this have to do with St. Thomas? You started this video off about St. Thomas, and all you're doing is rambling on about Oak Ridge. Okay, hang on to your panties. This is where William Brennan comes into the story. Brennan was 18 years old when he was sent to Oak Ridge after being convicted of raping 2 women near Sault Ste. Marie and the attempted rape of a 3rd girl. This man was a patient at Oak Ridge, a convicted sex offender, serving time in a maximum security prison for a bunch of crimes that he'd committed. Follow me here, guys, okay? This man was convicted in 1975 of rape and assault. 2 years later, he became a teacher to the vulnerable, mentally ill female patients at St. Thomas. The St. Thomas experiment. Let's begin in 1976. This is when the forensic unit for women was opened in a section of the St. Thomas Psychiatric Hospital. I don't know why I'm using quote. St. Thomas opened in 1939. It was open from 1939 to 2013. The patients, male patients from Oak Ridge, were promoted to security guards at Oak Ridge. They were promoted to teachers and or therapists at St. Thomas in the female ward. In 1978, there was a girl that was arrested for stealing a car. When she was arrested, her lawyer gave her two options. One of which is you could do 2 years in jail for the car theft, or you could do easy time if you went to the St. Thomas asylum. She chose to do the easy time, and she was sent to St. Thomas. You know, I wonder if the lawyer knew, like, what was going on there. I'm just wondering, someone had to know. How did people not know? Keep listening, because there's more. Good old Dr. Barker, he praised many of these men. Literally, he literally sat there during interviews and he was glowing, and he seemed incredibly, almost like a parental kind of proud. If that makes any sense to you guys, he was so proud of these young men that started writing up these reports for him that he had hired to help out, and it was apparently due to the budget. They couldn't afford more staff, so this is why these men were brought on as security guards and teachers and therapists. And it's literally fucking nuts that he's sitting there like a proud parent praising these men. And all of this stuff, I
always felt we were supported right through to the government in what we were doing. And there's an editorial you should see, if you haven't seen it, from the Globe and Mail saying, God, with the worst budget of any hospital in the Ontario hospital system, these people are doing brilliant things.
It's alleged that the trained and qualified nurses were rarely ever seen, and there was allegedly one doctor that took care of the ward. One doctor, and allegedly, he came once a week. And that was that. All of the other therapists were previous patients of Oak Ridge. It is said that the prisoners and the inmates had sexual relations. Not all were consensual, but it is confirmed that there was one baby that was born during the whole 6-year program. So William was a former patient at Oak Ridge, and he had a sexual relationship with the patient. It's said that she wrote letters to Brennan while they were apart, and she was, coming to term, asking things like, will they get married? Will he come back for her? She sees a future for the three of them, something along those lines. So what this lady didn't know was that Brennan's ass got evicted as soon as they found out he was going to be a daddy. So he was now out of the picture. And Then in 1979, the daughter that they had was given up for adoption. Can you imagine this woman's pain? If the medications alone and the programs and all of these different unique cutting edge treatments, if these weren't enough to torture this woman. Brennan passed away in 2018 from cancer, and he left something behind. It was a trunk of old documents, and these documents talked about the treatments at St. Thomas and the treatments at Oak Ridge. And these documents actually proved that the treatments that were taking place at St. Thomas now were the same treatments that took place at Oak Ridge, with one exception. The only exception was the fact that the male patients from Oak Ridge then were graduated to becoming teachers and or therapists to the mentally ill women at the St. Thomas Asylum. What I mean is that the women never had that option. They were never allowed to become security guards or be able to go over to Oak Ridge and be like, hey, I'm going to be your therapist now. How you like that, bitch? Fun fact. They used LSD to treat alcoholism and postpartum depression. I really just wanted to shed some light on this topic because, again, as I've researched different asylums and I've researched certain deaths at different asylums, and you're never stopping. You're thinking, that all of these people were abused, and this is these are the reasons some of them passed away. So, but you're never really thinking. You're thinking more physical abuse, I think, because if it's not out there and it's not publicly known, you don't know what you don't know. But and I guess because I went down the rabbit hole, I kind of wanted to just bring up, whoever really thinks about the actual treatments that go on, other than things we know, like lobotomies and shock therapy, because we watch movies. But let's be real. The things that go on are day to day, that how an alcoholic is being treated or how someone that has an opiate addiction is being treated. Does anybody ever really stop and think about, I wonder what measures are being taken to make sure that person's okay? Really, a lot of us don't stop and think along those lines. We're more of, okay, how can we be here and be a support team? Sure, yeah. And then what's the end result going to be? But never about that, where it begins and how do you get to that end result? What are all of those different treatments and drugs that they use and why? It's kind of weird that we're not, why? Why aren't we asking why?
Sirs.
The sad thing is the majority of these patients were under the illusion that if they went through all of these different treatments, taking the LSD, being completely taken off your medication and stuck in a room and strapped to someone else while you're completely off your meds and have a complete psychotic break along with everyone else in the room, good times. These patients, they didn't really have a choice. It was more like the therapist was, you're signing up for this. You're signing up for this. And if you didn't sign up for it, then there was just more abuse and more torture. There was no getting out of it. So these patients signed up as they were instructed to for all of these programs to be treated as a guinea pig and poked and prodded at and assessed and watched from behind mirrors. Sick and disgusting. Seriously. They were under the illusion that because they did this, that one day they'd go home. And the thing is, with Oak Ridge and St. Thomas, if you went in, you rarely came out. Even today as I make this video, it's known that if you have a mental illness and you come into contact with law enforcement, you can be sent to a forensic mental health care center. They still exist. I shit you not. When I googled that, I'm not gonna say who was on there on that list when I did that Google search, my jaw dropped open. I'm not kidding. I'm not playing. My jaw dropped open because these places that I know that people go to, I'm sitting there thinking, is this still happening? How the fuck did the government allow LSD to be given to a patient to stop them from having hallucinations? I'm not kidding. This is one of the things that happen. Like, I don't... How? LSD takes you on a trip where you're having hallucinations. You're going to give LSD to a patient that's having hallucinations so that they don't have hallucinations? Really? Oak Ridge only officially closed in 2014. You heard that? 2014. That's less than 10 years ago, you guys. 2014. St. Thomas closed in 2013. Okay. How does something like this go on for that long? Oak Ridge has actually now been torn down. And St. Thomas, that structure still stands, which is heavily guarded, might I add. As I said in the very beginning, do not even try to step your toe on the grass because the security will be right there and then they're going to call the police on you. And it's not something you want. So unless you're Jason Momoa and you're doing a TV show, see? Am I allowed to say that? Am I allowed to say that? I don't know. So, okay, unless you're Jason Momoa, no bueno, don't go, don't do it as much as you want to, and I'm pretty sure there's probably a ton of activity there, but big question, was anyone held accountable? Actually, to be quite honest, who was held accountable? Barker, Meyer, and the institution were all held accountable. So monetarily, anyhow, didn't really seem to do anything to their careers. However, they were held accountable to the tune of $10 million. And some of the patients received more than $2 million, and some of them received $1,000.
What at the time was considered, not everybody loved it all the time, and patients would get mad, but it really was, I think, legitimately seen as a reasonable thing to be doing. And now I resent the time having to answer questions about it, or defend it, or be accused of doing awful things. It pisses me off.
What's someone's life worth to you? What happened to Barker? Well, Dr. Psycho ended up going into private practice. Then he became what he referred to as the hangman.
And Boyd and I got known as the hanging psychiatrist because when they were fighting about giving mandatory 25 years, we said it's far better than curtailing parole, which is what they were doing. It's far better to hang a few people, even though it's wrong. Yeah. And you can pick out people who are absolutely dangerous and absolutely untreatable and hang them. And that caused quite a stir because most psychiatrists and most intelligentsia are kind of liberal about that. But I think that's a reality. Some people are beyond treatment, of any treatment we know, and if you let them go, they'll kill people.
Barker did end up suffering from dementia. Does anybody else think that that's poetic justice? Okay, guys, asylums. Were they a necessary evil? Or were they just evil? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments below, guys. I'm really actually interested to hear what you have to say about this one. See you in the next one. Peace.